Hello humans, Mr. Bell here with a drawing activity for today and in the next couple of days. For sure, all you will need is a pencil and a piece of paper. If you have a sketchbook, awesome, use it. If you don't, I'm hoping that we can get you some paper to do this, okay? Again, all you need is one sheet of paper for this. I want to talk about the difference between two types of lines and angles. You have organic lines, that's Organic, lines, Line, organic line, and then the opposite of that is a geometric line. That's Geometric, geometric line, geometric line. So organic lines are things that you find in nature. Wavy lines with curved angles. Like think about water or bark on a tree or something along those lines. And then you have geometric lines, which are really straight angles. Things that you maybe would find on the interior of buildings and stuff like that. Things that, like the walls of your room or the floor on your ceiling. Or your ceiling. So these are straight lines that you find here, and then these are organic lines. For this drawing exercise, we're going to be focusing on the idea of organic lines. So we're not going to use any geometric shapes in this activity at all. So what I want you to do is this isn't like a kind of really like kind of a trick to draw a pretty good flower, kind of like a daisy, but it's also a really good way to kind of train your hands in order to draw good shapes, ovals, and those organic, curved, smooth lines that you find in something maybe like a daisy. So using those organic lines, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick where I want my first daisy to be. And I'm going to draw a simple circle like that. It doesn't have to be a perfect circle. If it happens to be a little bit of an oval or something, that's actually not a bad thing, and we can use that to our advantage. This one, though, I do pretty circular, pretty perfect circle, just because I want this flower to be looking at the audience like straight on. I want the viewer to look straight into this flower in particular. And then we'll go on ones that maybe are more at an angle. So this one's going to have like its flowers right there, and it's going to be kind of a perfect straight on view of a flower. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a petal. Petals are ovals, but they're kind of like sharpened football shapes, or maybe kind of like a teardrop shape. So where they hook to the inner part of the flower there, these get skinnier as they go and they grow. Then I'm going to go to the opposite side. So I'm going to use this as a guide. This petal right here is exactly that long. Now I want to use this again. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to put the tip right up against where that edge of that leaf is, and then I'm going to take my finger and I'm going to put it right there, my nail on where I think that ends. Then I'm going to bring it down, and I know that right there is where I want this petal to end. So this is about the same length as this. Then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do that sharpened football / teardrop shape down schmear. Then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to measure from this one again. It's about that length. This doesn't have to be perfect, right? The flowers' petals aren't even always necessarily the exact same length. So we're just using this as kind of a guide on how to do this. And it'll go to approximately right about there in the middle of my fingernail, right around there. And then I'm going to do the same thing. Use this one as a guide. Why not this time? About right there. I'm using my pencil as a measuring tool. It doesn't just have to be rulers that you can measure. You can make approximate measures with anything that's straight, which is what we are doing right now. Then I'm going to take this flower. I'm going to flip my notebook here for just a second because it's easier to draw away from yourself than it is towards yourself or side to side. So I'm going to flip this a bunch to get these petals the way I like them. I'm going to take my line. I'm going to sketch it up to around there. Do the same thing over here. And now we have like a pinwheel that's going to be a really good guide for how big to make the rest of these petals. Remembering the flowers are basically circles. So we want this one that we're looking straight at to appear to be kind of like a perfect circle. So then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to measure This time I'm going to just do it 4 times right in a row. I'm going to measure to around there. Then I'm just going to eyeball this one. I'm going to say this one should go right around to there, trying to keep it about the same length. Same thing here. Same thing here. So now you have guidelines for where these petals, I think actually this one will be a little bit farther out. So I'm going to do that reverse teardrop thing / spiky football. Flesh it out to there. Then I'm going to do the same thing over here. You know, and remember, these lines can be erased or kind of sketched over, depending on what style you want to use. So it doesn't have to be perfect. We can change it after we get the basic shape. And voila, you have, you know, pretty good approximation of a flower. It's not very interesting looking yet. Maybe we can fix that. I think this flower has a little more petals. So I'm going to just go ahead and sketch in these. I'm going to keep these ones as the top layer, and then I'm going to put a second layer of petals below it in this area. Like so. Like so. And like so. And like so. I think this one will go a little bit farther. So now when you're at this step, I want you to take a second, and I want you to look closely at what you have here. Kind of notice that circle shape. Try to imagine this circle. For these flowers that are straight on, does this look like a pretty close enough to a pretty good circle? I think it does. For this purpose. Then, at the end of that, you always got to add that stem. When I draw flowers, I don't usually draw the stems all the way down because I want them to like maybe overlap or something. I don't know necessarily what I want to do at the end of it. So I'm going to just draw like the inner part of a stem right there just to remind myself that, hey, this flower, if I want it to look real, it needs to be attached to a stem. I might add a little happy leaf here. Just channel my inner Bob Ross. Maybe get this tree going like so. And again, I could flesh out that leaf more. So now, but I don't, when you look at like a field of flowers, maybe that's what I think I'm going to draw here is a field of flowers and have a couple that are right up close in the foreground and a couple that are way far back. Maybe it'll appear a lot smaller. But when you look at flowers, they don't usually just look right back at you, right? You don't see a flower from straight on. You see it from different angles. Maybe it's above it, or maybe it's below it. Maybe it's all the way to the, you know, looking all the way completely to the side. Or sometimes you might even see a flower from like the back side, which I think I'm going to do as my third flower for this. But this flower right here, I think I'm going to call done for now, and then I add shadows later. We're not going to do that today, though. But I'm going to try to draw a flower now that's looking kind of at an angle over here. So the first thing I'm going to do, and this is kind of a good guide to figure out how to draw these perspectives that you have to make these flowers look real. Instead of drawing a perfect circle here, or attempting to draw a perfect circle in the middle for the iris part of the flower, I am going to draw more of an oval shape. Longer than the other one. And this will kind of give me a hint, like these leaves on the long side of it, maybe they're going to be a little shorter because maybe this flower, instead of looking straight at it, maybe this flower is kind of looking off to the angle this way, right? So these petals here are going to look closer than these petals over here. So maybe these will be a little longer and these will be a little shorter as I draw them. The ones on the bottom, they'll be about the same length too, because this flower, we're not looking at an angle this way. We're looking at a flower from this angle kind of to the side. So I'm going to draw my first petal, and this is going to be a good gauge for how big the rest of my petals will be. Again, that sharpened football teardrop shape going in there using those organic smooth lines. Remember, a flower essentially never has a straight line in it. It never has a 90-degree angle in it. I'm going to go ahead and do that measuring thing I was doing. Taking the tip of my pencil, putting it on the edge, using my thumb to guide where that is, knowing that it'll be right about in the middle of my finger, right there. So good trick for just estimating, right? That's not an accurate measure, but that's okay. This is drawing and not engineering. Okay, so I have my second leaf up there. Now this is where the trick comes. This is where the illusion of this flower looking more real is really going to come from. So you need to kind of use your imagination. How angled, how far away is this flower looking from where I'm drawing it, right? So we're standing here, but maybe this flower is looking good way that way. So I'm going to put a dot kind of at the where these would end, but I'm going to take a guess. I'm going to say maybe this one's a little longer out here, so maybe it's going to be right about there. And then this side, just ever so slightly closer in. Then I'm going to flesh out those teardrop shapes. Kind of like so. And then this one is going to be even shorter, so it'll be right about there. I think looks pretty good. So it looks pretty funky right now, right? It doesn't really seem to appear to be real. But then the trick here is now trying to figure out if this one is a little shorter than this flower leaf, where does this one in between go? Because these are going to be the same kind of flowers, just from a different angle. So I'm going to take a guess, a little educated guess, and say I think this petal would probably end right about there. And then this petal on the opposite side of it, again, since it's on the side that's looking this way, this one would be a little shorter. So I want to find that middle ground between this flower petal and this one, which I think would be right around there. Then I'm going to flesh these petals out, adding that reverse teardrop, adding that spiked football. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this side. So this one I think would maybe come down around there. And this one's going to be a little longer, right around there. Now I'm going to flesh this flower out. Happy little petals, channeling my inner Bob Ross. And then I'm going to kind of go quickly throughout this, but I would put another maybe dot right around there, trying to find the middle ground between the two petals that they are. I'm going to put a dot around each place I think a new petal should be. I'm going to put one right there. I think a petal would be right there. This, I think, would be a little longer. Maybe this one comes up to right around there, there, and there. So now when I flesh these out, since they're kind of starting to touch in the middle, again, I'm going to go behind these. I'm going to use these petals in the front that I already drew to be the top petals, the ones that are on top of the petals, the flower, and then the rest of the petals will be underneath it. So I'm going to start where that dot is, and I'm going to start to curve it out, and then kind of have it connect in there. Maybe right around there. Right around there. Groovy. So now it's starting to kind of come together and start to look all of a sudden kind of like it's a much more realistic looking flower. I'm going to smudge this a little bit. Then I'm going to go back and I'm going to do that same thing I did this. I'm going to draw that circle around that flower. But this time I'm not going to imagine it as a perfect circle. I'm going to imagine the angle that I want this flower to look at. And I'm going to circle it up and see if there's any petals that just don't seem to fit in this shape. So I'm not just tracing the petals. I'm trying to draw like that circle shape of the flower, but only looking off into the distance here. So again, not just tracing the petals, but really being thoughtful with how I angle this particular circle. So I'm going to trace around there. I think this probably goes out a little bit farther. So as you do that, I realized that, you know what, this section in particular, I don't like. I don't think that these petals are quite long enough. So I'm going to add a little bit. And see, it's okay that like these little marks are there. We can incorporate that into the flower and have it look a lot more realistic here as we go. I'm going to flesh that one out a little bit. So I'm now taking the petals and I'm pushing them up towards where I want that circle. So this is now going to be my guide. So I want these petals to all kind of touch this kind of like almost a circle oval shape that I drew to kind of guide me as I draw this flower. Take my trusty dusty finger and I'm going to just kind of smudge these out because I think this flower maybe is like a blue flower that I'm trying to render in black and white. And that'll get rid of all these little lines that you had that you don't really like, that you want to get rid of, but they'll blend it in and you can use those to your advantage. Flesh this guy out. I think it'd be a little longer. And don't forget this little guy in the back. I'm going to go quickly, just kind of go back over these lines that I already did, that I smudged a little bit, because I like the look of this outline for this flower. Then I'm going to do the same thing with this one. Maybe this petal goes this way. So, or this stem, I'm sorry. So I'm going to draw this stem out in this direction. Kind of like so. Then again, I can do the same thing with this, like smudge this one out. I think I'm going to do that in a little bit because I want to draw one more flower. Only this time I want it to be looking the other way. We always think of flowers as just looking at the pretty part of it. But if you really are looking for a realistic flower, you got to remember they do have a back part where the stem kind of attaches to that flower. So kind of the same technique, but the first thing I'm going to do for this is I'm going to just, instead of drawing this circle, I'm going to just put a dot. And that dot will serve the same purpose. I'm going to orientate these petals around this dot. But since you won't see the iris part of the flower, I'm not going to add it because this is going to be the back of the flower, right? And this flower, I think I'm going to draw a little bit smaller than these. Maybe this is kind of a baby version of these guys. So I'm going to draw that first petal like so. And I'm going to draw the next one like so. I'll repeat that process. And then I'm kind of doing this fast. You guys probably should maybe think about marking them out like I did with my pencil for the other two. But for giving you guys more time to work and not wasting your time making me watching me do this again, I'm just going to kind of freehand this bad boy. So now I have like a facsimile of the back of the flower. Remember, it doesn't have that iris, so this is going to be the back. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to erase just a little section here. Try to get the last bit of that eraser I can. Then I'm going to draw just kind of a C shape right here. And then the stem is going to go over the petals. Like so. And like so. And then it'll kind of blend it into this C shape that you added there. And kind of bring it in around there. Just kind of get that hint of that shape. And then make sure that all of those lines that are in there are gone and kind of leave it blank like the stem is coming up on it. I'm going to blend these out a little bit. Bam. Bam. And then I think I'm going to end this activity right now. At this moment, we've spent about almost 18 minutes doing this. So for the rest of class, what I want you guys to do is work on this. And then I'm going to be in the Zoom, the Google Meet that we are in. And you guys can come up and ask me questions and all of that. I will definitely be around. I would really, really love to see your faces in person. Unfortunately, I'm not there for reasons I kind of explained if you were in class yesterday. And if not, I'll kind of explain stuff and give you plenty of time to ask questions and stuff.